The following program is presented by Ride the Wave Media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for all our videos at Ride the Wave Media Podcast. Enjoy the program.
We are those guys. We hope to remain your guys as we continue to navigate the NFL season. We obviously needed to restore ourselves, bring us back to health. I ate too much turkey over the Thanksgiving break. Nick Ferguson, our former 10-year NFL safety, keeping in football shape. Not a big turkey guy, I would imagine, huh, Nick?
You know what? I am, but I don't do the large turkey because it takes too long to cook it. What we started doing was if we decided to eat turkey, we would use turkey parts. That way you're not in the kitchen for hours upon hours. They cook evenly and they cook fast. When we did get a 14-pound turkey, we cut it down the center, removed the spine, and laid it flat.
Spatchcock.
There you go. It actually cooked evenly doing it that way. So yeah.
Big recommendation. Thrilled to hear it. I will save any digs. You know, I made enough fun of you over Halloween with all that candy you ate. So listen, you can have a normal Thanksgiving. I'll allow it. It was just 4 of us plus my 2 kids. So small bird, like 10 pounds, cooked in no time. Great dinner. So I'm thankful to have you, Nick, and I'm thankful that you were on the sidelines to wrap up Week 13. Your Denver Broncos taking it to the limit, 41-32 against the Cleveland Browns. And this Broncos team at 8-5, Nick, playing at mile high. They are riding high off of what was a lackluster performance from the passing offense and rookie quarterback Bo Nix, but taking advantage of a good running game and defense. Tell me what you saw from your Denver Broncos last night.
Well, it was a great overall team win, and it's great to see the offense actually do their part because that's been something that's been in question because we often saw that it was predominantly coming from the defensive side of the ball. So it was great to see them compete. And I've said it before that most people thought that the Browns at 3-8, they were going to be a pushover team. And what they showed was that they're not going to give up. And this was a team that had some injuries in the secondary. One of their corners, and one of their safeties was missing from the game. So you can tell by the explosiveness with the Broncos offense how that impacted the game. But it wasn't the typical defensive production we're used to. They got to clean some things up. There was some bad eyes and some communication issues. But what I did love was watching Bo Nix backed up, not panicking, trying to find the open receiver. And just so happens he caught the Browns in the perfect defense for what they wanted to do and a nice explosive plays to Marvin Mims, who, oh, by the way, Alex, I've been waiting to really have one of these games, and I don't know why it's taking so long for the Broncos offensive coaching staff to insert Mims into the lineup in this particular way.
I got that one for you because Sean Payton loves his big, tall receivers. And look, you saw how Courtland Sutton carved up that defense. Really, the Broncos just attacking, going after the Browns corner. No, I'm sorry. It was the Jerry Jeudy revenge game, right? First, Marvin Mims is stuck playing behind Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. Then they introduce a pair of rookies, Devon Vele and Troy Franklin, playing ahead of him. Yes. But no, I think the most electric part of that game were the back-to-back plays. Marvin Mims, 93 yards, Jerry Jeudy, 70 yards for those touchdowns. And it was really exciting in primetime, a standalone game, to see that type of offense where, look, Bo Nix, just under 300 yards, 93, as I mentioned, on that one play to Mims. Meanwhile, Jameis Winston, almost 500 yards, but if you tack on the interception return yards, that's like 700 yards passing for Jameis Winston with the ball going both ways. So we can do this one of 2 ways. You mentioned the Browns were coming in 3-8. They're 3-9 now. And your Denver Broncos had the wins that they were supposed to have, right? They beat up on the likes of Carolina, and they beat up on the likes of the Raiders. But at the same time, this is a team that is firmly planted in the AFC playoff picture. Sitting in the 7 seed right now, just behind the Chargers and the Chiefs in that loaded AFC West. But it's still given them a 2-game lead over the rest of the AFC outside of the playoff picture. So your expectation now, 13 weeks into the season, can they hold on to a playoff positioning? Is it just no matter what the record is, as long as Bo Nix shows development, maybe that defense comes along like we saw the way they agitated Jameis Winston? What are you looking for? And this goes not just as an observer grinding the tape that you'll do, but you're on the sidelines for Monday Night Football, Nick, and you tell me what you're looking for out of that football team when you are patrolling the field like you are Sean Payton, like you're Bill Cowher, like you're Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, I wish I had those guys' paychecks at the same time. But, what I'm looking for is more consistency, because when we've looked at any game coming up to this point, we can look at the defense, we look at the special teams, we look at coaches, individual players, and say, well, they haven't really put it together. I mean, when we look at last week and this week and the way that they won, against the Cleveland Browns, for me, I have to say, well, this team is now starting to understand, for me, what the standard is. And what I mean by that is the standard that I played under when I arrived as a member of the Denver Broncos, knowing as though every game you went into, no matter what Vegas said, no matter what the pundit said, you knew that you had an opportunity to win that football game. And it was because there was a belief in all the players in the room, when every guy's going to do their job. And that's a phrase that I know that you're quite familiar with, being a New England Patriots fan, but it is true. You got to be accountable as players to a point where you're studying all week long. And if you make a mistake, you can hold your hand up, say, you know what, that's on me. This is where this team is trying to get to. And they're on a bye week. So they're going to have to use this bye week to heal up, but have some time to reflect, because they got 4 tough games coming down the stretch. When they come back, they had the Colts. Then they go on the road for back-to-back weeks against the Chargers and the red-hot Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals team. And again, Alex, it's so bizarre to know that Joe Burrow is throwing for Jameis Winston's type of Monday Night Football numbers, and they're losing. It is crazy. So the Broncos as a team, they're going to have to make sure they have their stuff together.
Simply put, from the Browns' perspective of things, Nick Ferguson, would you like just to subscribe to Jameis Winston facts?
Well, give them to me if you got them.
Since Jameis Winston took over as the Browns quarterback 37 days ago, which is 5 games, Jerry Jeudy has 15.5% of his career yardage. 5 seasons in the NFL, 15.5% of his career yards has come in 5 games with Jameis Winston.
Well, you know what? Here's what that tells me, because this is kind of the big conversation here today on Sports Talk Radio, and also last night during the game. Everyone's asking, where was this Jerry Jeudy when he was in the Broncos uniform?
There we go.
He was always there. He was always there. But it was how you choose to use him. And then the comeback was, well, Jerry dropped a lot of footballs. And I was like, well, do you know the game of football is based on rhythm? You can't throw me the ball in the second quarter or the third quarter and go, oh, right, now you get into a rhythm. And I get it, because you're a wide receiver and if a ball touches your hand, you're supposed to catch it. But there is a rhythm that comes along with playing this game. And I, for one, much to the dismay of other media members here and some fans and followers, I was happy to see Jerry go out and perform well, because I know the negative narratives and the things that have been said about him. And I got a chance to kind of know him by going into the locker room, talking to him one-on-one. And there were things that were shared with me in those conversations that I haven't shared with anyone, and I don't plan on sharing with anyone.
Until now.
Well, no, not until you know how this works. I can't violate the trust of a player, even though he's no longer here. But here's what I can tell you. He was a very frustrated player because he knew what he was capable of doing. What we saw on Monday night, for me, I don't view it as, oh, well, that's kind of a flash in the pan, because Jameis Winston, he may not be a starter in this league, but he's showing as though he still has more in the tank. But that connection with him and Jerry Jeudy, knowing as though the Browns didn't have a number 1 receiver, and that number receiver right now is Jerry Jeudy. It shows you what the Browns are capable of if they have quality protection and they have decent quarterback play.
Couple more Jameis stats for you. Jameis Winston joins Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger. 3 career games, 450 yards passing with 4 TDs. Only Peyton Manning has more in his career. And also, these 5 starts for Jameis, 17-game pace of 5,539 passing yards, which would break Peyton Manning's single-season passing record. So it is exciting to see lightning in a bottle with Jameis, who also became the first 400-yard, 4 TD, 2 pick-6 player in NFL history. So he's going to be a free agent. I think had, Bo Nix not fallen into the Broncos' laps, or if we were doing this podcast in April, had they not reached on Bo Nix at 12th overall, Jameis Winston, before we move on from Monday Night Football and take a look at Week 14, is he an NFL starter for just next year? Is he going to get a multi-year contract to be a starter? Your thoughts on the type of live by the sword, die by the sword with Jameis?
Well, at this stage of Jameis' career, man, he is a quality backup. Mm-hmm. And notice I didn't say serviceable backup. Quality. Jameis is continuing to prove that he's a guy that you can rely on in the clutch. And I go back to this. There was a game where the Saints went up to Green Bay to play the Packers. And this was a point where, Drew Brees is kind of winding out of the league, and Jameis is now going there as the starting quarterback. And there was a disbelief that Jameis could actually get the job done based on the fact that once upon a time, he was a 30-30 quarterback, not 30-30, but 30-30 quarterback. Right. He went up there and he beat the Packers, and he did it in a great fashion, throwing the ball down the field. So there's no issue that I take with Jameis and this disbelief that he cannot throw the ball down the field. I mean, he was throwing strikes almost like he was, Roger Clemens for the New York Yankees. But
or Red Sox, or the Boston Red Sox, yeah.
I don't even mention that. That didn't even happen. That's a blur in my memory. But Jameis was actually dealing last night. But this was kind of an audition for him. Let's be totally honest. Yeah. This is an audition for him, showing other teams that he could come in and be a viable backup for them. And that's kind of where he is in his career.
Yeah, he's crossed the line from being goofy and authentic to, whatever you can't just brush off the concerns and allegations that followed him out of college, but, flaming out as a number 1 overall pick in his first destination, kind of learning from that adversity, maybe in New Orleans after that ACL tear, not long after that Packers comeback you reference. And he's got the locker room. Like that is his football team for the rest of the season. And I hope that he's given another opportunity, even if he is the type of a quality backup. Shout out another Broncos legend in Kyle Orton. That's a guy that had a 9-year NFL career without being given a ton of opportunities to start, later in his career. So you fast forward, right? The Broncos and Browns are headed in completely opposite directions, but certainly have young pieces on their offense that they hope can grow as time goes on, so that these games down the stretch don't mean nothing. I think there are a handful of games, albeit we have the bye-apocalypse, 6 teams that are off for Week 14. But as far as the AFC is considered, you've got the Chiefs and the Chargers stay in the AFC West for Monday Night Football, and you have another compelling, right there again with the Browns and the Steelers, who upset Pittsburgh just a couple weeks ago. So the AFC over the next couple of weeks is going to be really interesting to shake out, knowing that 8-5 Broncos is, the bar to enter the threshold that is the playoffs, right? Once you get past those first 7 teams, the Indianapolis Colts have a 25% chance of making the playoffs just because they're only trailing in the AFC South by 2 games. It is going to be a very high bar to clear, 10, maybe 11 wins if you want to be in the postseason coming out of the AFC. This is kind of what we talked about going into the year with the quality quarterbacks, with the ceiling that the Chiefs and the Bills provide. I mean, the Bills belong in that conversation now, having beat Kansas City since we last spoke, and the way that they dominated your 49ers in the snow. How do you make heads or tails of the next few weeks for the AFC, Nick?
Well, it's going to be really competitive as teams try to position themselves to be one of those top seeds. And the whole thing is that you're trying to stay in the playoff race, but still from a strategic standpoint, almost like, an NBA tournament. Do you lose games to play a team that specifically you match up better with? Because if the playoffs started today, obviously Kansas City and the Detroit Lions have the number one seed in both conferences respectively. But at the same time, the Broncos would have to face off against the red-hot Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Now, I would love to say, well, Buffalo gets the advantage due to cold weather. Not so fast, because we deal with weather here in Mile High City as well. But once again, it would be a great matchup because you would have a guy in Josh Allen who is, I guess, on a surface level, surpassed or gotten over the hump of Kansas City in the regular season. He still has to do it in the postseason. But you get Joe Brady versus Sean Payton, and you get Josh Allen versus a guy like Bo Nix. To me, sign me up for that. And then, oh my God, you think about Von Miller, a guy who was traded away from Broncos to the Rams to Buffalo, gets an opportunity to face off against his old team. And we saw what Jerry Jeudy was able to do. Sign me up for, man, that's going to be one hell of a matchup if it works out that way.
Von Miller's name popped up last night after Nick Bonito became their first double-digit sack artist since Von Miller and Bradley Chubb several years ago. So Von Miller's name still relevant, still hallowed at Mile High, winning that Super Bowl 50 championship. He's Nick Ferguson. I'm Alex Hardy. We're those guys, and we always wrap things up with a little Nick before we split. And Nick Ferguson, for the Chicago Bears, it is the third iteration where the general manager, the head coach, and the quarterback have not been under the same tenure, right? One of them is fired, one of them is retained from an old regime, and maybe the quarterback is a holdover, more or less. I'm sort of curious with the project around a number one overall quarterback, with Caleb Williams, with the skill set that he has, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, could still be the most coveted job, will be the most coveted head coach opening come this offseason. Now, it's the third straight time where you have a general manager and a quarterback and a head coach, not all of whom entered at the same time. So do you agree with me that this is the most coveted job for the NFL offseason hiring cycle, not knowing that there are going to be a couple of interesting names out there that we don't know of as of week 14 of the regular season? For a head coach coming in, do you have concerns with the way that the Bears operate because you're a head coach coming in, inheriting a number one quarterback in Caleb Williams, for a general manager that seems to be answering questions and responding to, working directly under the CEO and Kevin Warren? It's a interesting power structure with input from an owner, which usually doesn't end up going well for that team. I guess, Nick, before we split, your guy, Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson staying in Detroit, Cliff Kingsbury reuniting. Don't name names. I mean, Mike Vrabel or Bill Belichick off the couch. The Chicago Bears is a job that you want for one of your guys, or you're concerned about the existing power structure in Chicago?
Hell no, I don't want my guys taking that job. I mean, have you seen what happened with the Bears over the last 10 years? That's not a job that you keep for a long period of time. It's almost like having a car on lease, right? You have it on lease for like 2 years, and then now you got to return it back. I mean, we seen Matt Nagy was there, Matt Eberflus, Shane Waldron was an OC, and they still couldn't get it done. But it wasn't all Shane Waldron's fault, right? When you look at the fact from the personnel standpoint, everything starts with your offensive line. In any team, I don't care who you are, if you're going to invest a top pick in the quarterback, your first order of business is you better fortify that moat and that wall around him. If you don't do that, I don't care who he is, he's going to struggle. And oh, by the way, we've seen this movie before, haven't we? I wonder if Justin Fields is in Pittsburgh wanting to troll Caleb Williams and the Bears like, I told you so, but no one thought it. No one believed me. Everyone just thought it was me. But look at where the Bears find themselves. And I'm sure it may be considered to be a hot job because you have a rookie quarterback and you have a decent defense from a personnel standpoint. But it should come with a buyer beware, because if you're leaving another team looking to take on the Chicago Bears head coaching job, you know what? Remember, you rent, don't buy, right? Because your stay may not be long. And who's to say whomever comes in, they may start renting Matt Eberflus the same home that he had, right? It's like a revolving door. You just change the security code on the door. But, I mean, is it a coveted job? No, it's not. If you're a coach looking for a job for the first time, and especially if you're a minority coach, most likely you might take that job. You might take that interview. But if you are a seasoned coach, no, you don't want to take that job unless you make a deal with ownership, just like John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan made with the York family. This has got to be a 6-year deal, no matter what. Are you going to buy in or are you going to be patient? If that is a deal for maybe a Brian Flores, who I know, Aaron Glenn, who I know as well, Bobby Slowick, who I know as well, hell, even Robert Saleh, if for that matter, be careful what you're signing up for, because once again, it is that buyers beware sticker that may be kind of, you may have to put on the outside of that Chicago Bears franchise.
He's Nick Ferguson, at Nick Ferguson _25 on social, breaking down tape. Any takes that you have for your team or his Denver Broncos, he's there to answer questions for you anytime, anywhere. I'm Alex Hardy. We are those guys. We hope to be your guys as we continue to navigate this NFL season. Nick, I wish you all the luck in the world. I'm sure you're not sweating. You've already got your fantasy football team all taken care of. I'm, itching the playoffs for the majority of my leagues. Shout out, our guy Keith Arizari knocking me out elsewhere. However, I just want to say, I'm having so much fun doing this with you, Nick. We ought to come back after Thursday Night Football when we get a very exciting, very enticing matchup in the NFC North. What do you say, Nick Ferguson?
Hey, man, let's do it. And I'll leave you with this. Beware of people who say, trust me, right? My mom always told me beware of people like that, right? Be constantly aware of people. Hey, you know what? I got a deal for you. Trust me.
Same as if you say, let me be honest.
Yeah.
Does that mean you haven't been honest with me this whole time?
Yes.
Just now?
Yeah, safe translation, yes.